Madam Clerk, we are now live.
We're just loading here. Just give us a moment. Okay, Mr. Mayor, we're ready to go.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. It is 6 o'clock, so I am going to call to order the regular council meeting of Tuesday, February 23rd. And to begin, I'd like us to observe a moment of silence so that council staff and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you, colleagues. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Madam Clerk, there was none noted. We will then move on to the minutes. We have two sets of minutes, the regular council meeting of February 9th and the special council meeting of February 9th. Is there any discussions on those? No, Anita will move both. A seconder to those. Donna, any further discussion? All those in favor? Show of hands. Thank you, colleagues. Those are carried. We have no deputations tonight. Any questions, Madam Clerk?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll then move on to staff reports. And so the first report is a report on 44 Bridge Street and the heritage designation. Just before we get into that, I'm just going to describe to colleagues how we're going to do this. There is a fair amount of interest in this particular item. So I'm going to actually deal with it in three parts. So firstly, I'm going to ask for Rob to provide us a summary of his report, and he can go through it. So that would be the first part. The second part is I'm going to ask colleagues to specifically, if you have questions of Rob about anything that he's presented in his report, I will recognize you and please ask the question. When that is completed, I am then going to, as a third phase, call, as I did 2 weeks ago, on each councillor to provide their general comments. And I'm going to start with the ward councillor, Councillor Locke, and I'm going to follow the same pattern I did 2 weeks ago. So I'll be following that up with the deputy mayor, then Councillor Heron, Councillor Ballantyne, and then myself. So that's the how I intend to handle it. I ask for colleagues' cooperation in that. So let's begin with Rob providing a summary of his report. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, as you noted, the matter of the redevelopment of 44 Bridge, which includes the demolition of potential demolition of an existing historic structure, has been before council actually most recently on the 9th of February. And at that meeting, council heard certainly from several delegations and in addition considered a staff report. That report identified the fact that the Heritage Committee had engaged a qualified heritage planner to complete the heritage designation breach. And the intent was that that would be completed by the 17th of February. That would give the Heritage Committee sufficient time to review the brief and to evaluate the structure using its Heritage Building Evaluation Manual in time actually for council to consider the outcome of their evaluation at this meeting. So as a general note, the result of the Heritage Planner's evaluation, which was completed in accordance with Ontario Regulation 906, concluded that the property exhibits cultural heritage value and merits designation under Part 4 of the Heritage Act. So the result of the committee's evaluation was that the average score when the evaluations were done in accordance with our manual was 82%. And that categorizes the property as a category A, which by our definition is a structure that is individually outstanding and structures that are individually outstanding and have the broadest heritage significance by virtue of architectural, historical, and environmental criteria. So consequently, as the committee came to that conclusion, they have made a recommendation to council. And what they've recommended is that council designate the property at 44 Bridge Street in Lakefield as a heritage property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, being of cultural heritage value or interest. In addition, they've recommended that that fact be advertised in accordance with the Heritage Act and that the relevant people and organizations be notified. So essentially the receipt and consideration of the Heritage Committee's recommendation fulfills Council's obligation to consult with them. So in addition to the Heritage Brief that Council's been provided and the Municipal Heritage Committee's recommendation, Council has had the benefit of numerous letters, emails, and oral deputations from several sources with varying interests in the property. Council is now tasked with considering the broader implications associated with a decision to move forward as recommended by the Municipal Heritage Committee or not. So giving notice of its intention to designate is a viable option supported by research completed by the Heritage Planner. And in addition, of course, Council has the authority to conclude that it will not move forward with the formal designation of the property. And in my report does review the implications of either decision. And that, Mr. Chair, concludes my summary, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that Council might have.
Thank you very much, Rob. Deputy Mayor Senes.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Rob, when we designate a property, the property standards bylaw does continue to apply, correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. And I just have one more, Mr. Mayor. I'd like some assurance that council's not going to have to go through this kind of process again. Can you give us some steps that can be taken to ensure this doesn't happen?
I can certainly provide you with a sense of how we could avoid this sort of thing from happening again. So I think a lot of debates taken place over the fact that this particular property wasn't on our list, right? So council will recall that there's a hierarchy of designation criteria. There's listing a property, which doesn't have a huge implication to the landowner, other than that the chief building official can't issue a demolition permit for 60 days. So that's a, I guess, designation light. And then of course there's a full designation, which is what we're entertaining in this particular context. So I think the way to avoid having to do what we've done under the circumstances that we're doing it is to include as many of the properties that we think are of value on the list, right? So once the properties are on the list, then if somebody comes to make it, to demolish the property, the CBO is precluded from issuing that demolition permit for 60 days. And in those intervening days, we would debate whether or not we wanted to move forward with the full designation without, the overhang of a demolition permit having already been issued. So that, I think, would be kind of the way forward in terms of avoiding, something like this.
Okay, thank you.
Rob, I think, Donna, you had your hand up.
Thank you, through you, to Rob. Now, Rob, this isn't in your report, but it's in, I think her name was Emily's report. And part of the designation that she includes is a sunroom. Now, I have not been there to see the sunroom, but in my mind, a sunroom is a more recent construction, and I can't imagine how a sunroom would have heritage value. Do you have any comments on that?
I do, yeah. So that sunroom is an addition to the original structure. I think the way that the report was laid out, the center, or the center block, I guess, is the 2-story stone structure was the original structure constructed in the late 1850s. There was then an addition, a two-story addition on the west side that was constructed. That is also part of what's being designated. And at some point after that, there was a sunroom relocated from another location in Lakefield, as I understand it. So it's an historic component of the building. It was on another structure and relocated to this dwelling, has been used as a sunroom. So in Emily's opinion, it is worthy of designation as well.
Thank you, Rob. I don't see any other questions. Okay, I'm going to go to comments now, and I'm going to start with Councillor Locke. Please go ahead, Anita.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Rob, for the report. It's very well done. I do have a motion that I would like to present. I just want to speak to it a little bit. The first three portions of the motion is similar to what Rob has on his second page. The committee, the Heritage Committee, that was with regarding to that council designate the property, that the intention to designate be advertised in a newspaper, that the owners of the property to be designated be served with a notice of intention to designate. In Rob's report on page 3, where he speaks about giving notice of its intention to designate, the last paragraph speaks to alteration or demolition of the structure would be made by Township Council in consultation with its Municipal Heritage Committee. So the final paragraph within the motion it incorporates that particular aspect of Rob's report in a manner of speaking. So I'm going to just read this out, and then we can go from there. So whereas the Township of, can everybody hear me? Yeah. So whereas the Township of Selwyn has taken a number of measures to protect the built heritage of the community, and whereas a heritage brief prepared by the heritage consultant and evaluated by the Heritage Committee indicates that the property is a Category A, individually outstanding, and have the broadest heritage significance by virtue of architectural, historical, and environmental criteria. And whereas the Selwyn Township Municipal Heritage Committee has recommended that the property at 44 Bridge Street be designated as a heritage property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and whereas Council seeks development opportunities that are consistent with built heritage preservation, therefore be it resolved that the property at 44 Bridge Street in Lakefield as a heritage property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, RSO 1990 CO. 0.18, being of cultural heritage value or interest, be designated, and that the intention to designate be advertised in a newspaper having general circulation in the municipality as per the Ontario Heritage Act, RSO 1990 CO. 0.18, Section 31, and that the owners of the property to be designated and the Ontario Heritage Trust be served with a notice of intention to designate as per the Ontario Heritage Act, RSO 1990 CO. 0.18, Section 29(3), and further that in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act, any development proposal that would impact the components of the structure that are subject to the designation be subject to consideration by Council and the Municipal Heritage Committee.
Thank you, Anita. I'm going to go to the deputy mayor. I don't know if she's would be willing to second it and then make her comment.
Thank you very much. Yes, I will second the motion that Anita has brought forward. And I do have a comment. To say I am dismayed with the way this issue has unfolded is to put it mildly, especially knowing that it could have been avoided. It's really unfortunate this property fell through the cracks for designation, but having said that, the property's heritage bona fides have been established through the Heritage Brief to support designation. You might find it interesting that the county is going through the same process as it relates to the county courthouse and will ultimately go to Peterborough Council for a decision while a potential buyer awaits. I feel going forward that the rhetoric has to stop from all quarters. It's not necessary and accomplishes nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. I will go next to Councillor Heron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a comment as well, and it is, I do not want to support this motion tonight. However, I do understand that I must. This isn't about the protection of habitat. It's not about a real estate deal. It's about protecting a house, and according to the brief, it qualifies. Although it does bother me that at the 11th hour we're doing this, but it is what it is. But the bottom line is, just so everybody, in my opinion, is aware that Habitat did nothing wrong. They followed all the rules. And I keep hearing that there were mistakes made. And the last meeting I said there were not any mistakes made. However, I was wrong on that. The only mistake that was made, and that would be the catalyst of all this, is when a person of influence knew that Habitat was looking at purchasing this property years before they did it, and did nothing. Instead of getting involved and bringing it to the Heritage Committee, nothing was done. It was ignored. This whole mess could have been avoided with a simple phone call or email back in prior to 2018 to the Heritage Committee. There's lessons to be learned from this as well. We need a Heritage Committee that is proactive and to do what is best for the heritage of Selwyn. In their travels, we need them to be out in the community and looking for potential properties. Otherwise, I think the committee may be failing. We also need the Save Old Millhouse group to step up to the plate and have some of their members join the Heritage Committee, as well as bringing properties to the committee's attention. Their passion is admirable. Their organization skills have been commendable, and I believe they'll be an asset to us in the future. There will be a solution going forward, and the group may purchase, the old Save Old Mill group may purchase the property as been suggested, or the deal may still go through. Who knows? But for now, looking at the whole picture, I think this is the decision we need to make, unfortunately.
Thank you, Mr. Heron. Councillor Valentine.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've prepared a statement as well because I didn't want to forget anything that was swirling around in my mind. So I will read it into the record. It is unfortunate that this scenario had to be played out in the manner that it was. Obviously, the ball has been dropped sometime over the past several years. Since it's very obvious now that the property should have heritage designation, I sympathize with both sides. Members of the public have sent in 127 pages of notes encouraging council to designate. This is time-consuming and stressful for all. And the property owner bought the property in good faith, and we never like to change the rules in mid-process. I would also like to state that if the property had been dealt with in the prescribed manner, this decision would not be at the council table tonight. Since the property was brought to the forefront, many things have happened, including hiring a professional evaluator for heritage properties. As everyone knows by now, the property received a high score related to its heritage features. Therefore, I see no alternative but to support the motion that asks for council's intention to designate.
Thank you very much, Donna. Just before we go to the vote, I have some of my own comments to make. First of all, I'd like to thank my colleagues for their perspectives, their interventions, and all of the time that they have spent reflecting on this particular issue. Also, as said by some of my colleagues, to thank the broader community for their input over the last several weeks. You may recall at the last meeting, I concluded by saying there was a number of considerations that I thought we needed to do going forward. And one of those was, in fact, the review of the heritage brief by the committee and the assessment of the property. As it turns out, it did tell us quite a bit. And I'll just take a moment to quote a very small section from the statement of significance. 44 Bridge Street has cultural heritage value as a unique example of a Georgian house constructed in stone in Lakefield and in its association with prominent local figures Frank Hyde Darcy and John Hull. The house also has contextual significance as part of the wider 19th century landscape of Lakefield as a whole and in its historic relationship to the mill property and the Otonabee River. The house is also a well-known local landmark and recognized by local residents as such. That's just a brief recap. I believe the report makes it clear that the path forward to achieve our community objectives should include the designation of the property at 44 Bridge Street. At the same time, however, it is important to remember that designating 44 Bridge Street cannot be the end of the story, but needs to be the beginning of a process that leads to a renewal of the property. Designating 44 Bridge Street provides council, on behalf of the community, a tool to ensure that future development for the site takes into account any impact on the structures that are subject to the designation. The process to move forward, in my view, needs to allow the community to pursue the other considerations I put forward 2 weeks ago. These include striking a balance between built heritage preservation and economic interests, seeking a way to work with property owners to include heritage preservation as part of their development approach. As I said 2 weeks ago, cooperation, not confrontation, is the Selwyn way. And finally, that we need to seek a path forward that builds cooperation and cohesion in a way that addresses the various concerns that have been identified over the last several weeks. I believe all of these things are not only possible, but they're desirable as well. In conclusion, as I said in my last meeting, Selwyn has put in place a robust system for addressing built heritage protection that is pointed out by the Deputy Mayor and by Rob. We need to take a look at this process and determine what type of amendments that we need to put in place. And I support the motion. So colleagues, having said that, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, colleagues. We will now move on to our, oh, yes, Anita, do you have a comment? Sorry.
I just want to make just a few more comments. I want to first congratulate the group that the council is going to go forward now with the notice of intent to designate. You folks have done a lot of work. They say that hindsight is always 20/20, and I think this is a really good example of that, and full of coulda, woulda, shouldas, and if onlys, you know. So if only in the mid 1980s, when this property was more or less highlighted, if we had knowledge of that, if only the people with the knowledge of the LACAC wish list had come to the Municipal Heritage Committee back in 2010, or if only folks who were involved with the local historical societies in 2014 had come to the Heritage Committee and suggested take a look at the 44 Bridge. If only in 2018, when our Heritage Register was established, if the 44 Bridge had been suggested to be put on that list. If only in 2019, with our first iteration of the Heritage Register, which was posted to the website, you know, like I said, hindsight is 20/20. This whole experience has been a learning experience. It's been painful, I think, for all involved in it in their own way. And as Jerry pointed out, I think it was Habitat did nothing wrong. And if only the person who had cautioned Habitat about development plans and concerns, if that person had shared those concerns with the Municipal Heritage Committee, so much of this could have been avoided, if only. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Anita. Okay, we're going to move on, colleagues. We have another municipal staff report, the regulating rooming and boarding houses. And I think, Jeanette, this is your report. So if you want to go ahead and introduce it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a result, I brought forward for that live in the Summer Lane and Woodland Acre subdivisions. We have, council had resolved that we look at some options to deal with the idea of rooming houses. So I put together this report to provide some options, and I recommended an option that I thought that would be appropriate to move forward with. So first, just as it relates to provincial policy, the provincial policy statement and the growth plan do indicate that municipalities should provide for a diverse range and mix of housing options. Further, the county official plan has the same sort of language, and the plan actually considers the creation of rooming, boarding, and lodging houses as a form of residential intensification. So as it relates to options, I've outlined 3 options. One is we could do nothing, just remain status quo. So right now the township's bylaw does not define rooming or boarding house, and we've always just relied on the fact that we have no definition and it is not permitted in any zone, that it's not a permitted use. However, given that it has been argued that the use is permitted, and we have noted that most of the municipalities that I looked at, actually all of them that I looked at with universities or colleges, they do regulate the use in some manner. So I have indicated that I don't recommend that this option be the one we take. The second option would be to define a rooming or boarding house and then prohibit them within the bylaw. So as I noted above, without a definition, it's hard for us to regulate. So at the very least, I think we should have a definition. I did look through several municipalities, and I did not note any of the municipalities that took this approach. But also, as I noted previously, our provincial direction and direction in the county plan identifies prohibiting rooming and boarding houses would not be consistent with that direction. So again, I have not recommended this option. So the third option that I have recommended that we move forward is we define and regulate rooming and boarding houses. So first we can define them. I've seen several definitions out there. Some of them define them by limiting the amount of rooms right in the definition. Some will limit the amount of rooms depending on the zone category they're in. Some jurisdictions will have them placed strategically throughout neighborhoods that are near post-secondary institutions. I'm not suggesting or recommending that approach. My recommendation would be to define and then allow them in areas that are zoned for residential uses, so residential type 1, residential type 2 that are municipally serviced. The regulations would also ensure that we address other issues like minimum distance between rooming and boarding houses, parking requirements, amenity space, minimum room size, number of rooms, those sorts of things is what I'd seen throughout the different municipalities that I looked at. So what I have recommended is that if council wishes to move forward with option 3, that we draft a further report that would include some of the potential zoning bylaw regulations and any other criteria that might be considered appropriate prior to moving ahead with an actual public meeting and the zoning bylaw amendment for council to have a further opportunity to take a look at what the draft bylaw would look like. And then finally, the last component, which I almost forgot about, was we also had some concerns about people or property owners using their front lawns as parking areas. So I found a few examples of municipalities where they actually identify a minimum percent landscaped open spaced area or grass area that would be part of the front lawn. So I'm suggesting that we can adopt the same sort of regulation, and then I would just bring that forward in the housekeeping amendment that will be coming forward next quarter. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jeanette, for all that work. I've got Deputy Mayor Senes.
Thank you, through you. Thank you, Jeanette, for the work you've done on this. And I would like to move the recommendation with option 3.
Thank you. And Donna, is that a seconder? Okay. Do you have a comment? No, you're just seconding. Okay, Jerry, did you have a comment? No, he was trying second. Anita, comment? No, I have a question before we go to the vote. So you're going to put certain, when you draft it, come back, it'll have number of dwellings that can be in there, number of rooms, number of occupants, etc. Will those get drafted relative to where the property may exist? Because in different parts of the township, those rules could be different, or is it just simply going to be if it's a rooming house, these are the rules?
I'm not, I haven't really worked my way through that yet. But I think because of the limited amount of the types of housing that you'd usually see these types of rooming or boarding houses in, I think we would probably limit it just would be just across the board, and it probably be like, so for example, City of Peterborough has some areas where they allow 4 as a max and some areas that they allow 8 as a max. The areas that they allow 8 tends to be in their downtown core. Well, a lot of those older homes are set up to allow for that. We don't really have a lot of that in our serviced areas, so I'm leaning towards not doing something like that, but that's something I'm going to flesh out when I bring this report back to council.
Okay, so the bottom line is we're going to get all these details when you come back.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion duly seconded. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we're going to go to consent items. Colleagues, anybody want to pull consent items? I've got my pen here to record whoever wants to pull anything. You have anybody? Donna?
Yes, in the correspondence, number 3, 12, and 22, and number 18, Peterborough County Report, number 8.
Okay, so on correspondence 3/12/22 and on county number 18?
No, number 18 as well on correspondence.
Okay, so
County
3, 12, 18, and 22. Okay, and county
and
correspondence
number 8 on the county.
8. Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to pull? I want to speak briefly to 5A, 6A, and correspondence 11. So, and Anita.
Did anybody pull 14 on correspondence? Donna, did you pull that?
Nope, I'll put it down.
Okay.
Jerry, no? Okay, so on 5A, and so I don't know if Gord is there, because I'll go first. And it's just a 2 quick questions. We've experienced a decline in calls, and that's partly COVID related, but just a very general question. Has the COVID experience taught us anything that we may be able to take forward in a post-COVID world?
Through you, Mayor. Difficult question, but at this point, as we're moving again out and we're freeing things up again, it's the medical calls we're getting, and again, in the last, I'm going to say the last probably week, we're seeing a lot more major calls, more than just breathing and anything else. It's again, it's our demographics are older, Mayor, and I don't know where that's going to go there. Well, that's just always going to be there, but I'm going to say if we go through this next few months, whether I see something that just like glaringly throws it at us, that maybe change, but yeah, it's some of these medical calls again, it's going to be difficult to change how things are done at the CAC. And then unless the Ontario province, what they said they were looking at all this to clean things up, and nothing's happened ever since COVID started. So maybe give this a couple more months, Mayor, and there might be something come out of it. So that's
okay. Well, thank you, Gordon, and please, I'm sure I speak on behalf of all the council to pass on to all of your crew our appreciation for all of what they do. They're helping people. They're at their best when people are often experiencing their worst. So please pass on our thanks for everything that they
I
do.
will do. Thanks, Mayor.
I then, on the next item, I just wanted to talk briefly on the Peterborough Utility Services Annual Report. And so in the first report, and I don't have them in front of me, I just have notes here. So I'm just going to quote page 4. No incidents of adverse drinking water quality pests. And the same thing in the other report. This one is on our sewage system. No known failures against requirements. So both reports have indicated that we are doing that the folks are doing a good job in managing those facilities. The one question I did have, though, and I don't know who wants to take this. In all of those reports, it indicates that there is a granted relief from doing lead sampling tests. And that was consistent through all the reports, and that might be there every year. But in reading the reports, that sort of jumped out at me, and I'm just wondering if anybody could speak to that. And if not,
Yep.
Coming back would be fine too.
Yeah, I can't give you the details in terms of the relief, but that is something that has been in place for a number of years on the systems, and I believe it's a reduction in the frequency that testing has to be done.
Okay, thank you. If it's anything other than that, maybe you could just come back. But thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, we'll go then on to the correspondence reports, which is, I think we're starting with item number 3, which is the Peterborough Public Health, right? I think somebody wanted to pull that. Yes, Donna, sorry, go ahead.
Actually, 3, 12, and 22 are all related to providing sick leave to frontline during the pandemic. Number 22 has a motion from St. Catherine's, and if council wanted to put this forward to the province, the only thing that I would take out of their request under therefore be it resolved that paid sick days for all workers in Ontario during the pandemic. Now they have and beyond. I don't think we should go there. That might be a discussion for another day. But if you read those 3 items and that the Board of Health letter, it indicates that some of these frontline workers are coming to work even though they are ill. Now, that might not be able to happen now because if anybody has any symptoms in the house, then they're not supposed to come to work. But I think this would be something worth considering to at least support that motion. And I'll leave it to the rest of council to decide if they agree.
So it's just so that so it's the St. Catherine's motion, but you want it limited to just during the period of pandemic.
Right.
There's an actual legal phrase for it. So that's what. So you want to separate that out and move that. So that's because as you say, there's several that speak in that. Okay. Is there a seconder for doing that? Yes, Anita seconded. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll go through everything, and then we'll have 2 motions at the end. We'll have Jerry.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on that too, because I think it is a slippery slope where we may be heading towards. I understand during the pandemic that people are concerned because of, as Donna mentioned, one person sick, you got to stay home. There are some safety nets, heavy on the some safety nets out there. I know employers are helping some of their employees out if they cannot make it. However, going forward, the health board has also said as a continuing measure, once the current emergency is over, paid sick leave. I mean, Andy, you're a numbers guy and a bank guy. Did the health unit run the numbers on that to figure out what it's going to cost small business? I mean, that's huge. Right now, if an employee calls in sick, you can't even request a doctor's note now. Now, we all know that if there's money on the table where I don't need to go to work, humans being humans, they will take advantage of that. That's my concern. The burden on small business going forward. So again, I would call it a slippery slope, and I wouldn't support this.
I think though, Donna, your motion is just during the health emergency, right?
Yes, just during the pandemic. And I think that was the recommendation from public health, was it not?
Yeah, public health divided their, and I'll get to you in just a second, Jerry. Or go ahead first, Jerry. You go ahead. Yeah.
It does say in the Board of Health that it supports the need to provide paid sick leave as continuing measure once the current emergency is over. And I believe on our the report here, they're looking for direction on it, and so I wouldn't like that in there as far as direction goes, to do it once the emergency is over.
I agree. It would be just during the pandemic.
Okay. And to speak to the public health one, the way it was constructed, because the same conversation happened at public health, was public health called on it to be included in the regulation that currently provides unpaid sick leave, that be paid sick leave during the pandemic. And then it went on to say that the government should consider continuing that after the health emergency. So it divided it. It said clearly put it in place right away and consider it for afterwards. But public health, and to be honest, and different people will differ. Public health's view is that if somebody's sick, whether they're in a pandemic or whether they're elsewhere, by going into the workplace, they make other people sick. The issue, I think, in part isn't, and I agree with you, Jerry, if you're going to have a societal good being achieved, then that can't be just solely placed as a burden onto the small business person. It needs to be some sort of program that assists to allow people to do that. Because you're right, if you're a 4 or 5 person operation, it could tank you, right? So, anyways, Sherry.
So the motion that Donna is looking to support, who would be paying for it? The business owners or the government?
Listening to the discussion, I agree with Jerry that it shouldn't be on the shoulders of the small businesses. So I think that should be the province to do that. They're doing all kinds of other grants. They could just do that during the pandemic. So if we would maybe do a friendly amendment then to or else write it ourselves to the one from St. Catharines. I've got a different one open here now, sorry.
Jerry?
Could something maybe be brought back to the next meeting? I'd rather be able to see it in writing, what exactly we're proposing here. It's 2 weeks delay. I feel more comfortable.
I would accept that. I think
Okay.
that's a good idea.
We'll work on bringing back a motion. And so if I understand, so as somebody drafts this from the conversation, it should be during the health emergency, and that it shouldn't place the burden onto the individual small business. Is that sort of what people are looking for, to say something like that?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so we'll do that, come back, we'll have a debate, and we can go from there. Is everybody okay with that? Yeah, okay, thanks for the suggestion, Sherry. So I've sort of lost track of my list now. Hold on a second.
Number 18 was another one.
And number 4.
We had number 3. So we just did that, right? Okay. So we've got 12. Donna?
3, 12, and 22 are all related to this paid sick leave.
So we've done all of those. Okay. So then there is 14, which I believe Anita wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why it would be under correspondence as opposed to being under the section of petition. Is there kind of different criteria for the cork line documentation and signatures versus a petition?
Madam Clerk?
Yeah, I could just respond to that. It was directed to Health Canada, not specifically to the township. We were copied on it, Anita.
Okay, and then 18, Donna, is that yours?
Yes, it is. This is a question for Gord. So let me get it open here. It's about closing the Ontario Fire College campus in Gravenhurst. And Gord, I just wondered, is there another facility or facilities that would accomplish that training that was being given at Gravenhurst?
Yeah, we have one right in Norwood called the Eastern Ontario Emergency Training Academy, Donna. So a lot of the, other than say maybe, myself was full-time and our full-time fire prevention, they're really the only ones that ever went to Gravenhurst because it's through the week. And a lot of that was full-time members of fire departments in the cities and that and around the province. So we've always had a lot of the courses. Now we can get more of the courses at Norwood, and then it helps our bottom line and it helps promote that training center big time. So even 20 years ago when I went to the fire college, it was a primo chunk of land that Ontario provincial government looked at. We need to get rid of this. This is worth multi-millions of dollars. So and the COVID thing hit, and then I think that promoted finally doing it. So I just hope it doesn't turn into a police training center, and all of a sudden the province decides, oh well, they're worthy of it. So, but pretty well it's a done deal. It's not coming back. So
thank you, Gord.
I think the only other correspondence item that I to be pulled is the one that I just wanted to make note of, and that's item 11. And I just wanted to make note of the fact that the medical officer of health has announced her retirement. So Rosanna will be retiring sometimes during this year. And I just wanted to express the appreciation for the work that she's done in our community since 2008, and the work particularly during the first pandemic that she faced in 2008, 2009, the N1H1, and then obviously the work that's being done now with COVID. And so I just wanted to recognize that all of her service. Rosanna is staying until a replacement can be found, and make sure that we have a smooth transition. And I suspect that will happen sometime later this year. So that was my comment on that. And Donna, I know you had an item number 8 from the county.
I don't know if it's number 8. I can't find it under number 8, but what it is just bylaw 76-2021, where Mrs. Sheridan Graham has been appointed as Chief Administrative Officer for the County of Peterborough. And I just thought it would be a good idea for council to send her a congratulatory letter.
I would think that would be in fine order. Anybody have a problem with that? No? Okay, we will make sure that that happens. Okay, and that I think is the end of the consent items. Anybody want to move? We got Anita, seconded by Donna. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that's all done. We have no petitions. And so we will then go to council portfolio updates, starting with Donna on the community services, transportation and housing.
Okay, so the library board met this afternoon and decided on several updated and new policies. These included scent-free buildings, customer code of conduct, board code of conduct, working alone, and health and safety. They also established a fundraising committee to try and offset some of our negative balances because no book sales and no secondhand stores. And was also decided that there will be no volunteer recognition again this year. We plan to do the same as last year by $20 gift cards from local businesses and restaurants and mail them out with a list of long service recognition, because if we have a dinner in 2022, the award presentation would be way too long. It was discussed that possibly the people just stand up and they be recognized for their years of service. And the people that have specific number of years, 5, 10, 15, 20, would also be given an extra gift card because there's set amounts for each of those number of years of service. Police Services Board, no updates. Link, no updates. I don't think, Angie, we're still hoping to start May the 1st.
Yeah, we're still planning for a May the 1st start.
Okay. And as alluded to in the dashboard meeting, I attended the customer training session last Thursday, and there were approximately 16 participants from our staff. It was an excellent day. The facilitator has worked in the municipal world and was even a CAO at one time in his career. Therefore, he totally understood the climate in which we work and all his examples and talking points related to our everyday life. He divided the sessions into categories and had an informal quiz after each section. At the end of the day, he presented 3 customer service scenarios and picked members from the audience to play role play the parts, both for staff and for members of the public. It was a fun and effective way to culminate the day's discussions. And Janice has already indicated that we could have another such day because we couldn't accommodate all of our public service employees. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Donna. Economic Development, Sherry.
Thank you, through you. The Village Inn has been awarded a safe travel stamp from the World Travel and Tourism Council, and Beechwood Resort is going through the process to get this designation. It's something that's important for people who want to feel safe when they're traveling through the pandemic. Elemental Tree Care has opened in Bridgenorth. They're one of the starter company plus companies chosen by PCAD. Flowertown Cannabis has opened in Bridgenorth. Peter Rotter is opening an art gallery on 14 Queen Street in Lakefield for April the 1st. He'll be holding art classes there. Daryl Hannah and Neil Young were skating at the Oval on the weekend. So we got celebrities coming to join us. The Loon is open for dine-in now. They've been working for so long on the renovation, and then COVID hit. So they, as well as all the other restaurants and businesses, are open with our yellow zone. And I just wanted to mention that there's been an outbreak in Buckhorn. There were 6 children and 6 adults that tested positive for COVID at the nursery school. And as a result, some of the businesses have closed up there temporarily. So Laura Pizza and the pharmacy has closed for now, and the Codian has delayed their opening. So some businesses are being affected because of this pandemic. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. On Public Works and Recreations, Jerry?
Thank you. Just to follow up on Sherry's comments as well. Neil and Dara are, or Daryl, sorry, are really helping the local economy. They're doing a major renovation at the lake right now, and they're all local trades here. Flower Town, to your point, Sherry, I was in there the other day, get a little night stuff there, a couple drops of that CBD. Might as well give her a shot. Everybody seems to be doing her. That place is awesome in there. It looks like a jewelry store, if you will. Clean, bright, everything. I went in and introduced myself, telling them I was the counselor after my purchase, so I didn't get a discount. And I highly recommend just popping in. A couple good lads there. Most of their staff's out of Omimi, and the other guys from Beaverton. So local folks. As far as Park and Rec goes, the arena operations got going very well. They had a really busy week, and everybody's happy to be back on the ice. They did a trail walk over in Ennismore the other day that I had to miss, just trying to update the path, looking at rearranging some of the paths so that it's a little less confusing for people, and as well as putting signage up on the roadside. The guys are busy plowing and sanding, and then moving snow out of some of the smaller areas, and they're also started to steam some culverts as the weather has warmed up a little bit, and the flooding to prevent flooding. That's it from my gang.
Thank you very much, Jerry. I'll just briefly from my end, I had an opportunity this past week to attend the Kawartha Chamber AGM. They had actually really good turnout. They did it virtually, so my memory serves me correctly, had almost 60 people there. And Rhonda Keenan was the guest speaker from PCAD, and she gave a very good presentation. Also should mention that the county passed its budget this past week for a 2.23% increase in the tax rate. I should also mention that Sherry has been appointed to a new waste management committee, our deputy mayor, that has been established by the county of Peterborough. So she'll be kept busy on that. From a public health perspective, we talked a little bit about that in terms of sick pay. This week, Rosanna has announced that we're expecting somewhere in the order of 7,000 vaccines to come into our community between both Moderna and Pfizer. So, and some of that has arrived, and they will start to deploy that. There is also new monitoring procedures that are being put in place, and the school board announced that those to all parents and the students on Friday. And as well, Peterborough Public Health announced today that one of the variants of concern is now in our community. And finally, the last thing I wanted to mention, and Donna stole my thunder, is that Sheridan Graham has been appointed as the CEO of the county. So that's my report, and that completes the portfolio updates. Is there any other new or unfinished business, Anita? Anita, there you go.
Do you want me to give me? I just wanted to mention that obviously under the culture end of things, so our Heritage Committee is meeting on Thursday evening, and committee members have been compiling suggestions for the Heritage Register. So we'll be looking at that on Thursday night, and at some point that list, once approved and once all the legwork has been done, will come to council. And I just wanted to say that the Lakefield Community Garden, they had asked us to provide some input to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, I guess last year, I can't even remember anymore, with regards to wheelchair accessible garden beds. So I just read on their Facebook page that they're going to have that thing. They give thanks to our committee for providing input into the plan. The Fleming School of Trades, it has building the units. I think Bill Turner from Triple T donated the materials, and the Lakefield Horticulture Society contributed a donation to purchase triple mix. So that's going to be a real good thing for people who are in wheelchairs that want to do some gardening at the Lakefield Community Garden.
Thank you. My apologies for missing you on the portfolio report. Okay, now we're into other new or unfinished business. Anybody have anything? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk, we are scheduled to go into close. Do you want to deal with the motions, the bylaws first?
We can, Mr. Mayor. I also believe that you were going to try to schedule
Oh, yes.
the meeting.
Yes, okay. So colleagues, we have one piece of business that we need to finish up, and that is to set a date for this, for the final meeting of the CAO review process. And so I thought rather than going back and forth, the easiest thing would be when we're all here in the meeting. So I'm just pulling out my calendar as well. So and Janice is on the line too, I believe, so she can pull her calendar out as well. So oops, Anita's ran to go get her calendar. Okay. So I'm always good on Friday, but Anita, you don't work on Friday. Are you working Friday?
We're short staffed. I'm always working Fridays, so I'm always available on Wednesdays or any weekday from about 2:45 onwards. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from 2:45 onwards, or anytime on a Wednesday.
Okay, so next week I'm free at 2:45 on either Thursday or Friday. We can make it 3 o'clock to give you a little bit of time. Sherry, you're not available in those 2 days? No? Okay. Okay. So let's, the Wednesday.
Tomorrow's a Wednesday.
That would be a little challenging. Gary, did you say something? Sorry.
I was just saying tomorrow's Wednesday, if that works.
It won't work for me. I'm filled up for the rest of this week. So, but the second Tuesday would work at 3 o'clock for me.
Is that March 2nd or March 9th?
The second.
Okay.
Jerry, are you good? Second at 3?
I'm not.
Okay. Okay.
The night before our council meeting. So
I prefer not to wait that long if we could.
Okay.
We could do we could do Thursday the 3rd, but it would have to be about 4:50. Let's say 4:30.
Is that Wednesday the 3rd?
Yeah. Okay. Does that work for you, Donna?
At 4:30, yes.
Okay. And Jerry, does that work for you?
I can make it work.
Okay. And Sherry? Okay. So I need a motion, special meeting.
Maybe we should check with Janice to see if she's available.
Well, we should, but go ahead, Janice.
So that's Wednesday, March 3rd at 4:30?
Yeah.
I can make that work.
Okay, good. I think we got all of us. So, okay. So I need a motion. Donna, seconded by Anita. All those in favor? Okay, we have a special meeting set. Okay, then let's do the bylaws and then we'll go into closed. So we have two bylaws other than the confirming bylaw. The first has to do with appointments and resignations on the Trail Committee. And the other one is the bylaw to amend the tariff of fees. So do I have a mover for those? Anita, seconded by Donna. All those in favor? Carried. Now I need a motion for us to go into closed. Sherry and Donna, all those in favor? Okay, colleagues, I have 7:04, so let's say 7:10. Please be on the phone I'll have a number, a dial-in number. So that's 6 minutes from now. Thank you, colleagues.